I wanted to start off with just a few thoughts, and we'll ask each panelist to kind of provide some brief thoughts. We want to keep on track here. We did start a few minutes late, but again, I'm just going to moderate and ask questions. I'll provide some of the feedback from myself as well. And in terms of, if you just want to speak, just speak up, and we can go round robin. Just first question is, what are your thoughts on the current digital environment and cybercrime? Do you find cybercrime is on the rise? And then, if you could, please share some examples from your experience. So, who wants to kick it off?
I suppose I should field that one first.
Sure.
So I do think, unfortunately, cybercrime is expanding and growing. And what we're seeing right now in particular is international organized crime groups. It's really a transnational phenomenon are moving into this space. And there is a really pervasive sort of scam going on right now that is known as pig butchering. You may have seen it in the news or heard about it. It involves targeting people via their cell phones, usually with text messages. Sometimes it seems like you got an accidental text like, oh, Dr. Smith, when can I drop off my dog for his checkup? It's not, it's not meant for you, but the intent behind it is to establish a relationship with you over time. It is a long game for them, and eventually it leads into a situation where they're demonstrating an extravagant lifestyle that they're living to you. And wouldn't you know it, they're able to live that lifestyle because they've invested so aggressively in cryptocurrency. And you can do that too on their platform that is run by their uncle. And if you will invest in this platform that looks like a legitimate investment platform, you can also live the jet set lifestyle. And of course, over time, there have been a number of victims contribute massive amounts of their assets into this fraud. When they go to withdraw those funds, typically they are told they can't withdraw it because you have to prepay taxes on it, or you have to prepay fees on your account. And it's at this point where things really escalate for the victims. There have been victims that take out second mortgages, that borrow money from friends and family to pay these bogus fees to get back their money that's already gone. And it's really quite tragic. The name pig butchering comes from the Chinese term for the name, which is where this fraud originated. And it is so named because of the intent to consume the victim from snout to tail. In other words, to take the victim for all that they're worth. It's a very pervasive fraud that's going on right now, and I'm so happy to share the word about it because hopefully greater awareness of this type of threat will make it less effective.
So let's show of hands. Who has received a text from random text saying, hey, how are you? Or, we all have, right? So right. Again, that's a prime example of that. And again, the intent here is not only for you to gain information, but for you to share it with your family and friends as well.
Maybe I can add a little more color to that, to what Mark said. We're absolutely seeing these kinds of pig butchering sort of scams on Google products. But what's more concerning is that the scale of these kinds of scams is only going to grow, because you might have seen generative AI being used for good, cool applications. I'm sure you've gone to ChatGPT or Gemini and done something interesting. But trust me, the bad guys are also using the same or similar products, and they can now at scale generate conversations. They don't need humans even to be behind those conversations. And so they can reach out to 1,000x more people. They can send you very personalized emails that seem like they really are intended only for you. And they can be scammy at the end. So you really, really need to know who is at the other end. Be more careful.
Yeah, and I would say that dovetailing off what she had mentioned about AI is that we're seeing that there's a lot more deep fakes now, right? And so you can deep fake someone's voice. We're streaming this on YouTube, so now they have my voice. And they have enough of my voice now to imitate me, right? I was already out there, so I'm already, too bad for me. If somebody calls and sounds like me, it may not be me. But those are the types of things, right? They're able to make a voice sound just like somebody. And we've actually had crime that's happened with corporations where someone calls using the voice of the CEO to ask the head finance person to transfer funds. And they did that, right? Because if the CEO calls and says, we need to transfer funds, it sounds like him, they did it. Right. So you're having that level of deep fakes that are coming, and it's being, and again, it makes it so that the cyber criminals can make a lot of money, because if they can get the CFOs to transmit, millions of dollars or whatever, they can make money off of that. So you're going to see that increase, because as AI gets better and more available, cyber criminals are going to leverage it more. And so we just have to be on our guard, know who we're talking to at the other end, even if we think we know who it is, right? So that's kind of the catch-22.
I think I have one of the example here. So I think everybody have received phishing emails here, right? Have you noticed the difference between the emails you were receiving before and now? Right. So before, the Nigerian prince will be sending you an email with an obvious spelling mistakes and grammatical errors and obvious flow problems, right? Now, if you see the email, it feels like it is written by an English professor. You can't differentiate the legitimate email versus the phishing emails anymore. So that is just tip of the iceberg, and it's going to get really, really worse, especially when the election times are coming. There'll be a lot of fake videos and fake audios, morphed together, and it's going to be more prevalent. So it's going to be challenging before it gets better. That's my take.
And to add on that, I'm sure most of us have received those emails around, hey, you have a package coming, right? Or, hey, you have, we need to verify your information on PayPal, and it looks just like PayPal, it looks and feels like PayPal, right? So, again, my advice is always go to the source, and to Don's point, call the person and make that physical contact with something right? And that's the only way to really validate it. My mom's even received calls, hey, your grandson is in trouble, right? It's like, well, my grandson, I know where he is, so he's not in trouble, right? So, but they're preying on those ones who go, oh my God, I haven't talked to my grandson in months, right? And they tug at your heartstrings, so they're being very creative. So following up on that, what would be some advice for the public that they can help identify and even mitigate these challenges?
Right. So I can tell you from my own selfish perspective, if you are seeing something that is not, doesn't seem right, doesn't seem genuine, report it. Okay. So you may not have noticed, but every Google product and almost every other product has options in the UI. There will be a menu, not too hard to find, where you can say report abuse or report spam. And why am I saying this? Not just for that particular message, but it really helps us to train our classifiers, our systems, to learn. And new kinds of attacks happen every day, as you've heard from everybody on the panel. And the more we learn from y'all, the better we can do in protecting everybody. So that's one really important point I'd like to make. So go ahead and report if you see something. Don't just delete it. Let us know. And of course, the other thing was what I said before, know who you're talking to. Be really careful about who's at the other end of the line.
I would say that education is really a big part of it, and that is making sure that you're aware of what kinds of threats are out there, like the pig butchering that we just heard about. Now you all have heard about it. Now if that comes to you, you're going to recognize that. But here's where you can become a cyber defender as well, is that you know about this, you can tell other people about this, right? You can actually help make the world cyber safe as well. You can help, you can tell your grandmother, you can tell your sister, your brother, your sibling, you can tell whoever, right? And help them not become victims. And that's the biggest thing. So if you're aware of those things, I know in my family, I'm the geeky one, right? I know everybody, anytime something's broke with a computer, everybody calls me. But I have to work on making sure that I let my parents or even my kids sometimes know about what the threats are that are out there so they can do it. So education is really good, and getting the word out is one of the most important things we can do.
I suppose I should say quickly, if you find yourself in the unfortunate position that you believe you have been the victim of a cybercrime, I would encourage you to consider reporting to ic3.gov and to your local police department. Especially here in Santa Clara County, the local police agencies do have specialized investigators that can look into cybercrime. If this crime you are a victim of involves cryptocurrency, be sure to have that transaction information ready for the investigators so that they can help you as quickly as possible.
I quickly wanted to add something to what Donald said. So if there's a pig butchering scam and somebody's sending you a chat message, the best thing is to report it in whatever form you get it, but don't reply. I've heard some people say, oh, I just reply and give them a unhelpful answer. That itself is a signal to them that there is a live person and this number works. So just don't interact and report instead.
I think, so if you go to the other spectrum, right, be mindful of what you share online, especially on your social media. It's very easy to identify where you live, who you are, who's your family, and all the information just by watching your social media posts. And also educate yourself on all the criminal activities, or scams and phishing emails and whatnot, which is going to happen. That also will help you identify immediately if something is fishy, right? And one other thing which I really, really emphasize is that, yes, you need to use strong passwords and complex passwords, but reusing the same password just by changing the last character across 1,000 different accounts is not going to help. Because once it is breached, they know to use what the cyber criminals do is they put it in the dictionary and they change the last characters and they try on all different accounts. So it's going to be easy to breach, right? I think one of the suggestions I would have is to use password managers. Use a password manager, use strong and complex password across all the 1,000+ accounts you have, and you'll just need to memorize one master password to log into that, right? I think one of the top thing, and also if you're going to a hotel or if you're going to a cafe, if you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi, don't try to access banking accounts or any financial accounts. And if you still want to do it, if you have access to Dashlane, which is a password manager, they give you free VPNs, or try and use some VPNs if you're connecting from public Wi-Fis. So, end of the day, if you ask me, hey, if I do all this, will I be protected? No. You are trying to reduce the risk of being breached, and the risks can never be eliminated or destroyed. It can only be reduced, right? So you'll be the last victim they want to approach because there are so many easy victims out there.
Yeah, and if I'd add on top of that is most financial or applications allow you to configure multi-factor authentication, and that's another step to help, right? So then that means you have to validate access to your account, and many times if somebody's trying to, it'll get locked out or they won't be able to. Of course, does that keep you safe? Not always, but it helps, right? So again, each step, it's almost like compounding. Every step you take helps decrease your likelihood of being a victim. And the one last thing is to, when you talk about one password, it doesn't have to be some complex thing that you don't understand. It could be a phrase that you have and just replace some characters with special characters and so forth. So it's much easier to remember. I don't have it available, but there's a stat out there, like an 8-character password with even complex or with strings could be broken in a minute. Yeah. So that's how powerful our computing system is, right? So again, it's creating longer passwords, passphrases, changing characters or letters to characters. So again, it sounds painful, but everybody on this panel can speak to, if you do get compromised, it's much more painful.
But please don't use the master password anywhere else again.
Yeah.
Just own password.
Yeah, and we're recommending now 16-character passwords. That makes it sufficiently long enough for machines, if they're trying every combination, making it long enough for it to actually be useful. So if you have anything less than 16 character passwords, it can be broken exponentially. Every time you add a character, it goes up, right? Exponentially. So 16 it's only twice what 8 is, but it's far more, secure than that. But like you'd said, multi-factor authentication, kind of not a silver bullet, it's not going to solve every problem, but it goes a long way.
If I may add a perspective about how to stay safe, even being here today in this room and listening to this increases your possibility of being safe. So awareness helps.
And Don, we talked about it earlier, maybe share with the group about it's not a person or an organization, it's a collective effort, right? So.
Yeah, that's what, I'm very fortunate that in my role, I'm not law enforcement and I'm not regulatory. My role is to collaborate and to work together to help make the world cyber safe. That's what our role is. We understand that the federal government by itself cannot solve the problem. The industry partners by themselves cannot solve the problem. Local government by themselves can't solve the problem. We have to do this together, right? We have to work together as a team in order to do this. And go team. We just need to do it. We got to work together. And so we're very collaborative on our approach in reaching out. My job is more of an outreach role, and that is to help critical infrastructure operators to become more secure.
And just talking about working together, even the industry players do work together. They might be competing with each other, but this is one space where they understand that they really need to share signals on the bad guys and be able to fight them.
And I'd like to add on what you said about reporting it, because that helps. Like for us as a city, if somebody reports an email as a spam, we can quickly go search, did anybody else receive this email, and immediately delete it. So that just helps with our ability to help others not click on a link or click on something malicious. And most of us have heard in the news about breaches, and how do most of them happen? It's because of a user got compromised on some level, right? No longer are they trying to hack firewalls or hack systems, right? Why do all that complex work when they can address a human? So again, that's where, if you were in the professional world, again, organization needs your help to keep them safe as well. Just like we're talking about here, you all have a role keeping yourselves, your families, your friends safe online and helping communicate this message. So we really appreciate you being here.
Just one more comment I wanted to add, especially the school kids that are here. You folks have a big responsibility in keeping your own school accounts safe. Because if people are breaking into your accounts, they will misuse them to perpetrate other kinds of abuse outside. Because the PAUSD school system has a good reputation, and so they will not be perceived as spammers to the outside world. And so, every account that gets hijacked gets misused in many different ways.
And just to tail on that, how many of us in here have some level of credit monitoring on their social security number? So everybody should have that, right? Because that's one way of being able to identify if somebody is trying to use your social security number to create an account, to add an account. And most of the financial institutions, they provide that service free or included with their services. So encourage you all that's another step you can take, because maybe, Don, you can talk about the dark web and what that is and how much information is available out
That's
there,
a big
right?
topic. Well, no, I mean, every time there's a breach, we hear about these breaches. Information that may be about you then is typically the cyber criminals try to monetize that, and in other words, turn it into money for themselves. So they'll sell your information on the dark web that somebody else will then try to use to either do identity theft or open up accounts in your name or whatever. So that information, and you've noticed recently that a lot of K through 12 schools have been hit with cyber attacks. And there's a reason for that, because there's a wealth of information of young folks that don't even have credit yet, that information can then be used and leveraged by those cyber criminals. They're targeting you, right? I mean, and again, the schools, most of them don't even have full-time IT staff, or they may have one or two full-time IT staff. And so they're just using that information. So they'll go sell it on the dark web, which is just, part of the web that most people don't have access to unless you use certain tools to get into it. But That's where they try to sell all that information. It's estimated, it's over 50% of everybody in the United States, their information is on the dark web, right? So it's over that number. So just about, if we took this room, cut it in half of us are definitely, our information's on the dark web. And unfortunately, if your social security number is on the dark web, it's out there for good, because you haven't changed it, have you? And that's one of the main ways that we deal with credit and financial transactions. So that's a concern for us, for you folks as well, especially if you were at a school that had a breach or something along those lines.
And just imagine you go to apply for your first credit card and you get denied because your credit score is horrible. And you come to find out you have a whole bunch of debt that you've never even signed up for, right? So that's the worst case scenario. So again, credit monitoring is another bare minimum that we all can do to help protect our financial securities.
I have a question. The Googlers are here, so, I mean, you guys are in the thick of things from a cybersecurity perspective. How do you take care of yourself, your family, and your kids?
That's a great question. So when you say that, I mean, like, I'm starting with the cyber hygiene, right? At your home, the first thing is make sure your Wi-Fi is safe. I mean, I go a little bit, and I mean, one more step that I have a small firewall, which I use to monitor and control the traffic. But also, again, password manager, antivirus for your laptops. Don't click on stupid links. Like, don't click any links which you're not aware of, and ensure that any email which you receive, double check that it's coming from a, let's say, a reputed source before you click on that. And again, my older daughter is here, so she can also learn from now. So she's like 8-year-old now. So slowly we are, let's say, it has to be part of the culture, because we're not going to go back to 1950s anymore. We're going to go fast. We're going to go an order of magnitude because of AI, and everything is going to go very, very fast, and it's going to grow very fast. We're not going to be able to keep up. The only way is to educate ourselves and make sure that we're doing the right things. Again, we'll only be able to reduce the threat surface or the risk, but at least, as I said, we are not the easy victims anymore.
Yep, very similar, everything plus one to that. I also have my daughter here, who's right in the audience. But I think we start from the very basics, making sure that even if somebody calls you claiming to be from your bank, right, call them back. Don't call that same number, but call the number at the back of your credit card or your banking statement. So these are very simple things that we tell them. And then, of course, don't click on random links. We've had a few cases of malware on laptops, and that has been a really good learning lesson, not to do that. Don't go to random websites and links. So these are sort of basic things. Yeah.
And to your point, password managers nowadays, right? There's a bunch of different companies. You just have to do your research and figure, but they all have family plans. So what that means is you can sign up for one account and give your entire family access to that as well, and then you can help monitor that. I'm sorry, you had a question back there as well?
Yes, so you mentioned that some of these pushers are like international crime syndicates and across borders. So what does law enforcement and government do in such cases? Because criminal may be in another country or continent.
Do you want to repeat the question?
Mark? Yeah.
Do you want to repeat the
Yeah, Mark
question?
could repeat the question.
So I think the question is, a lot of the cybercrime we're seeing now, especially the crimes that are growing, have a transnational component to them, and how does law enforcement handle cases where perhaps some of the perpetrators are beyond the jurisdiction of the United States? Right. Is that okay? So that's a fair summary. So it's hard to give a comprehensive answer to that, because so many of the cases will depend on the specific facts of each of the cases, and sometimes the timing of it can be very significant. That's why I think I mentioned earlier, it's very important, if you believe you are the victim of cybercrime, to report very quickly. Sometimes things might be recoverable if law enforcement can get to it in time. Sometimes it might be gone. Each case is different. So I can't give a blanket answer to that, but law enforcement is I think being very proactive in establishing task forces and training competence in investigators and in prosecutors who are able to handle these types of cases.
I can add from my own personal experience, just working very closely with the FBI, that they work very diligently with other nations, law enforcement to go after those cyber criminals in countries that are favorable to us and working with us. And the FBI, if you watch the news from time to time, it's not all bad news. They actually are taking down cyber crime gangs. They're working with other law enforcement in other nations. And they're working with our industry partners. Like I said, it's a collaborative approach. And organizations, private industry organizations like Google and others, are actually working with law enforcement in those other countries because they're transnational, right? Google is an international company, Microsoft's an international company, and so they can help law enforcement as well within the law and frameworks of all the various laws of all the different countries.
Maybe I can add a little bit of a different angle to this. So in the last presidential election, there was a lot of controversy about who was funding ads, political ads for presidential elections. Was it international entities that were trying to manipulate the elections? And so there, Google had put in a lot of effort, and you can to track who is paying for ads, what is their background, verifying that with a pretty extensive process. So if you Google for Google Transparency Report, you'll see where who's paying for what kinds of ads when they're political in nature. So and we're doing that now in multiple countries. Yeah.
If I may add to that, I love that question because one of the things that got me very interested in what all is happening nowadays is a slight change in approach that is being taken by the REACT agency, which Mark works for, is that don't go after the perpetrators, go after the money. So follow the money and try to get the money back. And so that is more of line of sight than going after, trying to figure out who they are behind their masks and so on. So I love that approach, and I really think that is something that's working out better than going after the perpetrators. Isn't that right?
Sure. If the ultimate perpetrator is in a country that is not cooperative with the United States, there may be very limited options in bringing that person to justice. But if the money is moving within the international financial system, or with depending on if it's cryptocurrency, depending on how and where it's going, there may be recovery options available.
I think there's a question.
Yeah, you said hackers love to attack people of our ages, adolescents, right? So would you say that children are the most vulnerable to these attacks, or is it a different age range, like your age range, or
So I would say even more than kids, it's the senior citizens because they are not as tech savvy. And they have funds available, unlike y'all. I'm sorry.
You guys have college to worry about.
And so they make really good victims. And we've seen that kind of across the board.
Yeah, we've heard the stories, right? Elders get duped out of a lot of money, sometimes their entire life savings, right? And they try to find people who are looking for that connection, so that's what they prey on, right? And of course, a lonely, grandparent could, start saying, "Oh, you really, this happened to you, and this and that," and again, it's just pulling at the heartstrings, and then of course creating that connection. So, to your point, victims are across the board. They're looking for anybody who's going to engage with them at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. They are looking for anyone that will engage with them. And what we've seen with pig butchering is that it isn't necessarily targeted at specific age groups. There have been young software engineers that have been victims of pig butchering in their young 20s and 30s. And then there have also been elders that have been victims of pig butchering. So it really is they're not discriminating based on age.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on another thing with social media, right? And one thing I teach our kids is, or my kids are, whatever you put on, whatever information you put online, there's no taking it back. Once it's out there, it's out there. So be very careful. Once you hit that post button, it's out there for everybody. So again, just being diligent about what you share. And be very careful when you're on vacation to share things while you're on vacation, because that gives them clues where you're at and so forth. Even your kids are saying, hey, I'm in Europe, right? That gives them information that, hey, they may not be able to get a hold of them in Europe, so I can say, hey, they're in trouble in Europe, send them money, right? So again, the amount of information they have access to and the tools they have to help correlate that data is beyond what we can do in the private sector even, so. Anything else? So one of the things that I like to share is, do you guys have any resources we can point the public at to go to for training or awareness, like staysafeonline.org or things like that, that they can help educate themselves and help educate others?
You just took my one that I was going to
Sorry.
mention. Stay Safe Online is a good one to go to. You can go to the CISA website, cisa.gov. You can search for a lot of topics. Most of them are going to probably be a little bit more technical. We do have our top 3 items that you should not do. One of those is not use obsolete software because that is often targeted by threat actors. So keep your software up to date. Don't use things that are out of date. Get the newer versions of the software. Unfortunately, that's just the way software works, not trying to get you to spend no extra money, but we need to, because when it's out of date, it's just going to be vulnerable. We have other things on our website. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is in October. Cybersecurity Alliance will run that, so pay attention to those ads when they come out, repost those to get the message out about all. I don't know what the theme is going to be this year, but last year we talked about the same type of thing, making sure that you had long, complex passwords, that you updated your software, didn't wait for it to update, those types of things. So those are at least 2-3 sites that you can go to look at, but there's plenty of others.
As far as resources go, if you are the victim of a crime, cybercrime, you can report it to ic3.gov. If you believe you're the victim of identity theft, there is identitytheft.gov that may have resources relevant to your situation. But really, I think, attending events like this and having a general awareness and developing a mindset of security is really going to be what's most helpful.
And Mark highlighted earlier, your local law enforcement here in Palo Alto, we have a division or a person. He unfortunately couldn't be here today, but he's responsible for addressing any reports of cybercrime. So they work closely with FBI and all other 3-letter agencies, including Santa Clara, the DA's office. So again, that's a starting point as well. But our hopes is you never have to use that because you become educated and you know what those signs are, right? So my general rule for my family is if anybody's asking you for money, question it, period. There is no get rich quick schemes, unfortunately, right? So if it sounds too good to be true, it most likely is.
I think one more thing is that Girija, just to reinforce what Girija was saying, if somebody, let's say, for example, randomly your grandson is calling you and asking for money, so, for example, they got into an accident or they're in a different country, the first thing is, if you feel it's fishy, end the call and call them back. That's the only way you can, make sure that that's a person you're talking to, otherwise it's basically fake, right?
And Mark, do you have any general stats in terms of, I guess I just want to create the awareness that how challenging it is to get money back once you become a victim.
I don't have any specific statistics on that, and I'm not sure how helpful that would be even. I think, each case is different and unique, and this is the exact circumstances of each case, where the money is sent, how recently it was sent, whether you are able to provide information about that transaction quickly. All of the totality of those circumstances are going to be very important. So I wouldn't want to even give a statistic that looks grim that might prevent or delay people from reporting. You should report and preferably very quickly.
I could add to that. The FBI recently had, I was at another conference and the FBI speaker was there. And they said if you're doing an electronic funds transfer and you accidentally do it or you do it to someplace else, so not Bitcoin or anything like that, but electronic funds transfer, if you report it within 72 hours to get it to them, within 72 hours, they have a higher likelihood of recovery than they do after 72 hours. So to reiterate his point, timeliness is the most important thing. It's going to increase your chances of getting any money back as soon as you find out about it, reporting it.
That concludes my questions. Any other final thoughts or questions from the audience?
Sure, I guess this is kind of like a different type of question, but you mentioned like it's important to get future generations involved in cybersecurity. Just wondering, like, what are your stories about how like you all got involved in cybersecurity?
That's a great question. I didn't start my career thinking I was going to get into cybersecurity. I didn't start my career thinking I was going to do anything with computers at all. So I don't know what I was going to do. I wanted to be an astronaut, I think, as most boys probably do.
Me too.
I was like, I want to go to school. I want to go to space. I kind of fell into it. I went into the Marine Corps. I got into communications. I wanted to, actually, that's not even what I wanted to join the Marine Corps for. I wanted to use artillery. I thought that'd be really cool, big guns. They said, no, you got to go into communications. I'm like, okay. So that kind of got me started in that direction. And then over time, it's just been a career of, opportunities and taking advantage of them. And I tried other things too. I tried construction work and I tried selling mortgage loans, and I just couldn't do that. I'm not even going to make a comment about that. I fell into this, and I've always had a sense of duty and service to the community for the greater good. And for me, I know about this, and this is the way I can serve the community. I can help make you guys cyber safe. And that's, so I have more of a why I do what I do, right? If you ever get a chance to read Simon Sinek's book on why, it's a good idea to make sure that you understand why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, it is more of a passion or a goal or a mission, right, than a career. I don't care whether I work here or I work somewhere else. I'm still trying to make the world cyber safe.
If you're very interested to get into cybersecurity, I think there are many ways to do that. Since you're young and if you feel like you have a lot of time and passion towards it, there are many bug bounty programs. So, for example, Google. If you try to hack Google, any websites, it can be. If you try and hack it, I think there is a price. I think it's like around 15,000 to I don't know what's the top limit. So it comes with let's say dollars. I mean, like it comes with money as well, right? So it's the same program applies to a lot of large companies like Meta, Google, Apple, whatnot. Again, anybody can try it. And if you're really interested, if you're passionate about it, a lot of folks who has done that has made like a lot of money doing that, and also they got hired on these companies eventually, right? So it's a pretty good way for you to skill yourself up for the game, and also when you graduate, your job is almost secure.
And I think generally this area of safety and security is going to be a huge opportunity. Area of opportunity, area of growth. And as AI grows, making sure that it's safe and secure is also going to be a big space. So, yeah, it's a great area for you to look at down the line.
Yeah, and from my experience, it's something that we've been required to do. And I agree with Don. You have to find what you're passionate about. For me, it's serving a community, providing value to the greater good, right? But, back in the day, we didn't have to worry about cybersecurity, dating myself, but, it's become more and more rampant over the last decade or so, and it's only increasing, and it's increasing at greater speeds.
Yeah, I'd say it's very mission driven. So it's a very fulfilling area also to work in.
I would add that when you look at cybersecurity careers, there's a lot of different careers. You have everyone from working in businesses, from developers, to advisors, to legal, right? You can get into cybersecurity and get into all kinds of different areas. So There's plenty of that. I would recommend, if you're interested in it, there's a website called cyberseek.org. It's run by a coalition that's working with the NIST and Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency to get out the information about all the different career paths that you can have, the different types of certifications that you can get, what those pay, what the number of jobs that are available currently in cybersecurity are. And by the way, there's a deficit. In other words, there's more jobs than there's people to fill them. So if you also just want stability and want to know you have a job, cybersecurity is, for the foreseeable future, a good bet.
Sorry, I just want to add one more thing. I totally forgot the name of the movie, but I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, someone who hacked Yahoo got arrested by FBI, and then eventually he was also hired back by the FBI, I guess. I don't know what's the movie name. I'm not sure what's the name of the person, but again, it's you don't have to get arrested now. You can actually get paid for that.
Don't get arrested.
If you are interested in cybersecurity, and particularly if you're interested in public service, there are a number of scholarships for undergraduate and graduate level studies. I know the National Science Foundation does award a lot of scholarships in that area in particular.
And it's as Don mentioned, it's a field that is growing and will only grow. Think about in the last 10 years how much more reliant we are on technology and how much more connected we are. I mean, everybody has a smartphone. The smartphone's more powerful than a computer we had 10 years ago, right? So, again, we live in a digital world now. And with that we have a greater responsibility now in protecting ourselves.
Well, I just have to say that when I grew up, I didn't have a computer.
Yes.
We had one phone in the house.
Yep.
And nobody was trying to hack into my Atari 2600, right? So that's the world's changed, right?
And the younger generations probably don't even realize that when we were growing up, we had to use dial-up internet, the AOL. We had to use a phone line to dial up to the internet. And so, now everybody has high-speed internet. So again, it's access to information, but it also requires diligence on our part to keep us safe, right? And social media is a great example. Please be careful of what you post, because once you post it, you can't take it back. Anything else? Yeah. Yes.
What about the Web3 space? You have a lot of people that are utilizing, you said crypto and all that. You guys kind of brushed over it, but there's, we're going into Apple Vision, we're going into Google Vision, and all of these things. And what's happening before our eyes are our entire industries in our cities are being scanned right in front of us, right? So they're scanning real estate. They're scanning, our cars are being, scanned. All of our streets are being recorded right in front of us. All of our personal data is being released without our knowledge, right? So how do you say somebody who has access to all of these things, how do you help prepare them to maybe have a secure base in that, or do you guys, want to maybe ponder on that? Because that's a whole new world that's being developed within the next less than a decade, 5 to 10 years. We're going to be able to basically live our lives from home. We won't have to be outside all of the time.
Anybody want to take a first crack?
Tough question.
It is a tough question.
I would say cybersecurity is always a cat and mouse game. So it's more like the cyber criminals get to it faster, and then we catch up. And that's the reality of the world. But again, that's happening, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of work going. I don't have a particular answer, but again, I think it needs a lot of catch up.
Yeah. And maybe to clarify from the private space, especially Google, and we deal with that city, right? People who have access to confidential information, and even with Don, right? It's classified, and so staff is trained how to handle that information, and it's only access on an as-needed basis. So maybe to address that from a Google standpoint, because to her point, Google, Facebook, they have so much information on us. They probably know more about ourselves than we know about ourselves, right? So maybe just address it from that standpoint, like how companies deal with privacy.
I'll just make a point, I come to know about what my wife is shopping using my Facebook feed. Oh, what is this? Okay.
Okay, so one thing I can say for a fact is that we take privacy very, very seriously. I know people will roll their eyes, but honestly, even internally to get stuff done, even to fight abuse, privacy is a big thing we have to think about very carefully internally. So it's not like, oh, Google is collecting all the data and now everybody in Google is going to be able to use it for whatever they want. That's never the case, right? One more thing I wanted to say is, as technologies are improving, we, just like Anna said, it has to be an arms race. As the abusers are getting generative AI in their hands, we too are using them. We are now beginning to use LLMs or large language models to fight back. And we are seeing a lot of progress made there. So it is constantly, if they're getting better, we need to get better too.
The only thing that I would say, this will be my personal opinion, not the agency's opinion, I want to make sure that's clear, but that privacy is very important, all right? And I think younger generations, which is sharing things, oversharing on the internet, don't understand the impact of that privacy. We're fortunate that we don't live in a nation that is authoritarian or will use that information to put you in jail, right? So we sometimes take that for granted, but we should not take privacy for granted. We should go to our apps and turn off, tracking and all those other things. I think that privacy is very important, and I think it's important for a democracy, and I think it's important for a free society.
Thank you for the question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One more question. You mentioned that they don't use it to be authoritarian with the task force, but I've actually worked with private detectives before, and I've sat in rooms with people who have been through things. And one of the investigation points that they use is social media to then clarify and confirm whether that person is maybe tax evasion, maybe they can catch them on something else because they're doing something highly illegal. So, just a question, so, because it is a resource for government officials to then even know, should I be hiring this person to work in my office, right? Are they really professional, or are they maybe doing something that they shouldn't be doing that we want to be represented by?
Make it private and make it hard for us.
Perfect.
Don't share.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? And it just emphasizes our point about what you share on social media, because employers know that's a point, right? And it's open public information. So again, the less you share it, the better. Yeah, it's great to share certain things and share with your friends, but to Don's point, make it private, have your private groups that you share within, right? Not a public. So all apps have that ability, it's just not on by default, so you actually have to enable that. Yes?
So I've heard some talk about, don't install or don't run software that's outdated, remove all the vulnerabilities and stuff, which I totally get that. So, I think that's really smart, but I'm wondering, do you have any recommendations as to types of services that are more secure than others? So, I don't know, there's a lot of different kinds of email systems that we can use, or there's different kinds of operating systems. What is more vulnerable than others? Is there any recommendations there?
A great question. So I'll take that one first. Recently, 2 weeks ago, 68 companies came together with CISA to sign a pledge to design code securely. And they're going to use certain standards to help make it more secure, right? So this is one of our first steps, and that is to make that code more secure. In addition to that, I've worked on the business side of things, and my job was less of the technical side of it and more the governance side of it. And my job was to make sure that anytime we purchased a product, that there was an independent third-party audit that was done on that service so that we could see that they have security in place. In addition, so you can do that. It's harder to do as an individual than it is as a company, because as a company, I say, I'm going to buy your product. I need to know that you've had a third-party audit. So you're starting to see a labeling that's going to come out on IoT devices that's going to come out to tell whether or not it's secure or if it's been tested, at what level is it tested. There's websites that go out and test those systems. The FTC has a covered list, and they have a list of chip manufacturers, and they recommend that, well, for the federal government, we can't buy things from any manufacturers that have chips from those manufacturers in it. But that's a good opportunity for you as a consumer to say, hey, if the federal government's not going to buy it for whatever reason, even if it's classified the reason and why we're not telling you, that's probably a good indication that you probably should not be using it yourself, right? So I would take all of that as a part of it. So anytime you purchase anything, I think it's an awesome question. Do you think about security when you purchase it? How many things do you have in your house that are connected to the internet? Your refrigerator, your washing machine. I just brought a brand new washing machine. I didn't even know it tried to connect to the internet. My phone starts telling me it's trying to connect. And I'm like, I didn't turn anything on. There's no buttons on there for the internet, so I don't know what it's doing. But so this interconnected world, we have to be informed consumers. And we're trying to, CISA with the Secure by Design program, companies that signed it, 68 of the largest companies signed it, that they're pledging. We're not legislating, they're pledging to do the things that we're saying should be done, because they recognize it. Again, it's that collaborative approach. So I think your question is really good.
One last question from here, and then we can.
Yeah, we'll transition.
How can the youth protect ourselves from cyber attacks? And also, what would you like to see improved in school districts for cybersecurity?
I can start a little bit. So I definitely think the administrators need to be very careful not to get compromised in school systems. So we are seeing administrators get compromised, and then kind of all bets are off for that institution, because then they can do anything. They can add 1,000 users, and they can, look legitimate until it's a little late in the game. So, and each of you also has to make sure your accounts are secure, because, like I said before, you're part of a good institution and good standing, and that can get misused too.
I would add that kids are coming to school already using technology. And so from kindergarten on, we should be teaching cybersecurity. We should be teaching technology. It should not be an optional training. It should be, we live in a digital world. And in order to be digital citizens, you need to be able to protect yourself. You also need to be able to participate in a digital economy. And you can't do that if we're not training you on those things. So my personal opinion, we need to start at K and work our way all the way through with not just technology, but just also how to protect ourselves from it.
I just want to add one more thing. I mean, I know the kids, especially during the adolescent age and whatnot, as Darren was saying, whatever you post online, you can never take it back. Think about any of your private photos or private, let's say, information, whatever it is. Once you post it, it's there, it's out there. It cannot be taken back. So the education from the ground up, like grassroots level, it's more important. From the let's say from kindergarten, including I think cybersecurity plus financial education is important. I think, but I think it has to come from that level, and then being educated and aware it's very important here.
And it's like in companies, cities, or any organization, we rely on our users to help keep us safe. So again, your school districts we're allowing you to help keep them safe as well, as you mentioned, right? Keeping your account safe, and again, addressing the people who administrate the systems, right? As Donald mentioned, school districts have a challenge because most of the time they don't have dedicated security staff, or never have dedicated security staff, so they rely on administrators to help get up to speed on it. And that's a challenge that we're addressing even in local government. We understand that need now, so that's another way to address it. But again, we rely on our users to help keep our system safe as well. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So,
one last one.
I think Ms. Madhuja mentioned about the use of AI and LLC inside your cybersecurity I was wondering, what are like the threats that could happen from AI in cybersecurity? And even if we did use AI to bypass, to stop cybercrime, what are some like ways you could use it? Because in our app, we want to implement an LLC into it, but you can easily like trick an AI. Like you could trick ChatGPT into thinking 2 + 2 is 5 or something. So how could you like, how do you bypass that? How do you make it better? How do you outsmart the hacker?
Right. So the question was, how do you make sure that the LLMs don't get manipulated themselves when they're there to protect you against other kinds of threats? A great question. I would say, so you have to use it in a very careful way. We use it in ways that it cannot be manipulated. There are certain ways you can use it wide open, and you can ask it to do things that it's called jailbreaking. You can look at it online, and you can jailbreak into a large language model and make it do things it's not supposed to do. And there's always ways we are trying to keep that protected. But then there are other ways where it's not a general purpose chatbot and it's used to classify emails. And that's what we do, for example. And there we are looking more at the content of the email and feeding that into a modified large language model and getting the right answers. So it's harder to manipulate those.
I would add that there's a coalition of organizations coming together to work on cybersecurity to reduce the risk on the development side of AI as well. NIST has a special publication out there that talks about some of the risks where you can go into the inference engine and you could attack that to get it to give you out false results. So protecting that, the whole secure on design thing that I was talking about earlier applies also to AI. We need to make sure that we're making it rock solid and protecting it, put the guardrails on it.
And I think Don mentioned it earlier as well, is these cyber criminals have resources that go far and beyond what we have. So we're always going to play catch up, but our biggest tool is the public, right? Because again, they have the direct impact. If they're not making as much money, then diminishes their resources as well. So again, it has to come from a bottom-up approach, unfortunately. Well, thank you all. So the next part is I would just like to give the different groups an opportunity to just introduce yourselves quickly. So one person could stand up and just say what you're doing and introduce your team. That would be great. I think we have 3 teams, right?
Yes.
So if you want to start?
So,
You need mics.
hi, I'm Mark,
actually,
Om, Aiden, and Agustia, and we're the Palo Alto High cybersecurity team. Are we gonna present from here? Or should we?
You could, yeah. Should I
Is it
pull
possible?
up?
Yeah.
You sent it on email?
Yeah. I haven't emailed you. It should be in your drive.
You've emailed me?
No, on your Google Drive.
I don't think I have it on my Google Drive.
Okay, I can email you.
Or do you want to connect to the laptop, connect to the screen? I can give you this.
No, because my computer's still on.
Okay.
Here, if you go to your drive, I can.
How come it's on my drive?
Your Google Drive? Because I shared it from Google Docs.
Okay.
You might want to start the other team.
Okay, tell me what you've done. Where have you
Here,
sent it to
we
me?
can. I got your presentation, so I'll just share it from mine.
Oh,
and we can go from
okay,
there.
great. Okay, great.
Just to speed it up. So go ahead and keep talking. I'll get your presentation up.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah,
Okay.
close there. There you go.
Sorry about that. All right.
No signal, so it must have just got, this cable must be a little. There it is. It's just, who has the control?
Here.
Yeah, just press the number.
There you go.
So again, hi everybody. I'm Samarth's Om, Aiden, and Agustia, and we're the Palo Alto High cybersecurity team. So the Palo Alto High cybersecurity team was founded recently at Pali High School, and we're all freshmen at Pali. So when we heard about this competition, we started deciding a few goals for what we wanted to do. And our first one was to raise awareness in young children, and secondly, to help children understand why cybersecurity matters. And what I mean by that is a lot of speakers go to elementary schools and give like book talks or other things of that nature. And I feel like a lot of times students leave those talks not really having learned anything. So we wanted to really emphasize having students understand what cybersecurity is, why like scams can be dangerous, and overall just having fun throughout our presentations.
So with that, we came up with our project, and I think all the panelists mentioned that it's really important to educate people, especially younger children, and that's why we decided to go to elementary schools in the district. We went to multiple elementary schools in the district and reached over 600 children, and we also created a website to display our team projects, goals, and future, which we'll go over a little bit later.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we were able to reach over 600 children in PAOSD, and at these elementary schools, we presented out cybersecurity, and specifically, like, we focused on malvertisement, which is like the combination of malware and advertisements. And we taught these children like different things, such as like how to differentiate between like good ads and bad ads, how to tell if links are trustworthy using things like the HTTPS SECURE protocol. We also told them like what can happen when you accidentally like get malware downloaded onto your computer, and they were very like surprised to learn about things like spyware and how attackers can see through your camera into real life. We also told them like stories, a story of one of our members' grandparents who went through malware attacks and what happened with that. And at the end of each of these presentations, we asked them to fill out a Google form, and with that, we were able to like see what they liked, see what they didn't like about it, and use that feedback kind of to make the presentation better as we went along. And through these presentations, we kind of made it a conscious effort to keep the information like distilled to a kid level kind of. Cybersecurity is a complicated topic, as I'm sure you all know. So we tried to make it relatable to kids using things like video games they play, and other things like that.
So we collected feedback from all the children, and as you can see in the first graph, most of them had a basic understanding, but not an in-depth understanding of what cybersecurity was. And after our presentation, we learned that most of them had learned a lot, and around 2/3 of them really enjoyed the presentation, and specifically enjoying learning about different types of malware, including spyware and ransomware, and also about what HTTPS stands for and how the S stands for secure.
So here are a few pictures of us presenting at the different schools. This is Aiden and Augustia presenting at Barron Park Elementary School to the 5th graders. Here, I think they were talking about the HTTPS protocol, which was something that a lot of the kids and teachers learned about and didn't know before. And as you can see, a lot of the kids had a lot of questions. We made sure to answer all of them and tried to talk to them as much as we could throughout the presentation. Yeah, here is myself and Summer presenting to, again, Barron Park, to the 4th graders this time, and we were talking about things like ransomware and spyware, especially spyware. A lot of the kids were really shocked at how the cyber criminals can actually see you in real life, and that really made them focus on and realize that cybersecurity is a really important matter and could affect all of them a lot. We also created a website and are currently updating it and working on it. It is just to show all of these kids and also the teachers after the presentations more information on cybersecurity, and just in general teach as many more people as we can on cybersecurity and what we do as a club.
Yeah, so after this season of presentations, we wanted to compile some accomplishments to share with you guys. So the first one is that we held 5 total presentations across multiple elementary schools. And along with that, we reached out to over 600 students. And then our most important accomplishment that we think we got is that kids love learning about cybersecurity. And so we realized this accomplishment through our feedback forms where kids talked a lot about the specific details that they learned and a lot about how they enjoyed our presentations a lot.
So for our future, we have a few things in mind. Firstly, we want to try and expand our cybersecurity club, try and gain more members so we can start expanding to more people. And that ties along with spreading awareness through new means. So we plan to visit middle schools and also other high schools through our club. And then eventually spread to even retirement homes so we can help elderly people and teach them about cybersecurity. And lastly, we want to just try and continue our presentations and broaden our audience. We plan to revisit some of the schools we've already been to in the following years when there are new batch of students coming to the school to learn. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for
so much
listening.
Any questions or?
I just have a comment. That is fantastic. I love what you guys are doing. That is awesome. You're helping make the world cyber safe, and you're going out there and that you had such an impact with 600 students, and you were wise enough to say, let's explain it to them at their level, right? So that's very, very important.
Thank you.
+1, fantastic. I love the mission. If you want a couple of suggestions, I would say if you have a website, that's great. I would make it interactive, give people a quiz, and get them to spot the scams. Maybe it just makes it fun for people to be like a game, you know. And maybe you mentioned going to senior homes. I thought that was really important. There are locations like the Avenidas is an organization in Palo Alto where people just come, senior citizens come to spend a few hours in a day, and they have classes for them. This might be a great sort of learning activity over there too.
I was really impressed with the feedback forms that you had submitted and the amazing feedback that you got from the presentations.
Thank you.
I love your presentation here. So I was curious, like, how did you reach out to 600 people, students? What's the process? Look.
So it just started with emailing the secretaries of the elementary schools and the principals. One problem we actually experienced first was that a lot of principals did not reply to us. But for our first season, I think 5 schools is a good start. So
Maybe next time you should expand your education for principals. Just kidding. But you took explaining to me like a 5-year-old very seriously. I love it. I think you should, as Girija was saying, make it more interactive, make it more appealing to all levels. To the younger generation as well as to the older generation. I think you're doing great.
Thank you. Thank you.
+1 to everything that was said. Congratulations. Great.
Thank you.
Next group. Well, one last round of applause. I have your presentation too, so we can run through it if you'd like. Which group is this going next?
It's the one called On Guard.
You can run it from here if you'd like.
Yeah, we can come there.
Great.
So we want to play a video, so just you want to connect your laptop.
It should be all right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you have the presentation, because I think
Yeah.
yours is the one that had the video that
Yeah.
it doesn't have access to. They have, yeah. It's just taking a few minutes to detect your device. It's a Mac. It should start quickly. Well, if you want to start introducing yourselves while this is happening, we can just do that.
We are the On Guard cybersecurity team. I'm Anish.
I'm Kavya.
I'm Krish.
And I'm Kaden.
There you go.
Wait, can we get your laptop? Where's your laptop? Yeah.
Problem with live presentations, there's always a little hiccup, so never fails.
Very secure.
It's very secure, yes. Nobody will come on this thing.
Gotta connect to HDMI too.
Yeah. Should we try this one? Maybe.
We're adjusting the screen. And let's see here. Your resolution might be too high for the TV. Like watching.
Wait, what? Connected to his computer, right?
Can't. Oh,
To his computer.
he doesn't have the video.
Yeah.
You can play the video from yours later.
Alright, sure. We can try that. Oh, okay. The computer request access.
Oh, yeah.
Goes.
Make sure we don't need to use the controller. Here we go.
Alright, we're Team Vanguard, and we are bringing the app that is going to bring cybersecurity to all. Okay.
And so this is just kind of like introducing our goal. And so I was inspired by the fact that 88,000 plus elders were targeted by cybercrime in 2022. And this is a statistic from the FBI. And the main goal is to educate people. So we wanted to make an app that could educate users to not only stop the threat, but also teach them about the online world and also stop the scams.
So the process was to first research. We researched the 10 most prevalent cases in the Silicon Valley. Then we narrowed it down to the 2 most prevalent cases. We found those to be phishing and pig butchering. And then we brainstormed and made multiple iterations of flowcharts to implement and put these flowcharts into actions in the app. And then we tested it. We gave it to elders, and we found out how our app works, and then we improved upon it.
Okay, so now to talk about the app. So the process of our app is to first stop if the users are going through a cybersecurity threat. And we do that by asking them a string of questions and validating if they are going through a threat. Then we want to educate them because there's no use of just telling them how to stop it. They need to know how to verify if they are going through a threat, how to stop it. And then you guys were talking about reporting it to like phishing or IC3 at Gov. So we also taught them how to do that, and we also gave them the resources to do that. And then prevent. So that's the most important thing, because if I just know about it, that's not good. We want everyone to know how to prevent these threats. So we also teach users how to prevent them, and we also want to get the word out to more people.
Next thing we want to show is what we call the Akinator method. So the Akinator method is where we take our user inputs, and using those inputs, we give specific tailored outputs. As mentioned before, the two cases that we narrowed down to were pig butchering and phishing. These two cybercrimes are what we found that seniors and children are most prone to, especially pig butchering, because these crimes are specifically targeted to old people. One of the biggest examples that Mr. Numura had mentioned is that you have to call the organization / institution that these bad actors pretend to be and verify that they are a part of the institution. So we did that a lot into our things by showing them how to report and scan red flags and figure out whether or not the person contacting them is folly or not.
Okay, and then one of the most important things was educating the users, and we had to do this while keeping in mind that they are younger children and seniors. So like you guys were saying, they're not as tech savvy as we might be. So we did this by incorporating a thing we called senior proofing. So we implemented the I don't know button, which is the yellow button right there, in case they don't know the terms that we are listing in the questions. We implemented numerous tutorial pages to teach them. We created an app tutorial to show them how to use the app. And then we also implemented a cybersecurity dictionary going over all the terms that they would need to know, such as this was one of them. So malware and phishing, that's one of the terms on one page. And then these are our next steps.
Here are next steps for our app. Our first one is showcasing. We hope to showcase our app to elementary schoolers and elders to let them know how the app works, and also teaming up with the nonprofit Sparks team. We'd also want to improve the app. Some improvements that we want to make is incorporating an AI so that users can message the AI and get a tailored response to them. We'd also like to implement the app. We would like to make the app into government protocols to ensure that everyone is cyber safe. Lastly, we hope to reach out the app to make a more bigger audience to use it. We want to make the app multilingual.
Okay, so here's a quick demo of the app that we pre-recorded. Okay, so this is our homepage. They click the form. And then we're just going through the Akinator method to narrow down what type of case they're going through and if we can help them. So this is one of the tutorial pages where they need to validate a phone number. We give them all the resources and how to do it. And so they went through it, they went back, and now we have told them what they're going through, and we took them to the dictionary, and that's a basic case and how the app works. So thanks for listening. Do you guys have any questions?
Anybody? Thank you.
I think it's a great idea. So just so I understand it correctly, you are creating an app for users to go to get help when they think that they've been phished or they've installed malware.
Yeah, so it's for like teaching them about the cybersecurity threat. So it's not only for if they think they're going through a threat, it's just for everything. So if they want to learn about it, they can do it there. And then we're also trying to implement like a gamized version of it where they can like try to spot threats, and so that they just need to become more familiar with all the threats in the new digital world.
Nice. It would be, maybe you already do this, but it'd be nice to be able to take an email that's in my inbox and submit it and say, hey, is this okay or is this not? I don't know what to do with it, because that's a question we often get.
Yeah. So like we were saying with the next steps, so if we were able to implement the AI, I think that could do all of it for us.
Is this an app available in Apple Store or?
Right now, we can't really, because there's a whole process. We have to get a developer account and whatnot. It costs like $200, so it was, yeah. So I think we'll definitely do it in the future if we get, if we make the app more advanced, and yeah.
How do people get access to the app today?
So right now we just have an IPA file where they can just sideload it from the internet. So we can give them the file, and then there's like a whole step-by-step process using sideloading applications, and then we could get the app there. But we're still improving on that because we can't get it to the App Store right now. Yeah.
What is the intention of the app itself? Is it to educate the seniors on mean, like for example, how some of these scams work, or is it more advanced than that? You know, are you intending to make it more advanced in a way that it's also going to be part of their, let's say, email solutions and phones and whatnot?
So what I guess you're asking is like it's almost like an extension, like
Yeah. So is it more of an gamified educational app where the seniors can understand what are these, cyber attacks, or is it more like you're gonna incorporate that app with other solutions like your phones, texts, and emails? That's where it's happening, right? So is that the intention, or is it more like just for the education itself?
I think right now we're focusing on educating, but in our next steps, we're definitely gonna make it like an extension so that when they go into their Gmail, they can easily just open the app and then they can see, and they can scan it and then they can just figure it out if the email is bad or not.
Okay.
It's a lot more.
That's great. I love the app. I think it's a really great idea to help folks kind of narrow down whether or not something is or is not, phishing, irrespective of what type of phishing it is, right? So this is great. I think you've got a great idea going forward. I think that there's a lot of really potential there. There's a lot of potential there. I mean, I could see this as you could put a little AI chatbot on there so you could just talk to it and say, hey, I just got a text that says this. Do you think it's fake? And then it could just respond back and said, that sounds like it's fake, So definitely has that potential. I'd like to see it when it's available in the store.
Yeah.
So definitely let us know.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Very impressive app, and look forward to seeing that available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. The finale? Yeah. Thank you. Great work. Did you want to just use my laptop, or did you want to try to connect yours?
How hard was it to connect?
If you have a Mac?
Yeah.
It's a newer Mac, so I don't know if they have the cables here available or, yeah. Unless you have videos, it might just save time.
Yeah.
So we'll just do it here. Whoops. Hard to do it sideways. There you go.
So, hello, I'm OJ, and this is our project. My partner unfortunately couldn't be here with me today. And it's called Cyber Smarts, and our focus was on helping teens stay safe from bad actors. And I feel like, obviously, we already talked about this a lot during the panel discussion, that a lot of us, pretty much everybody actually, has been contacted at least once with one iMessage or one Instagram message from somebody being like, hey, this is Lori from Glassdoor. Would you like to earn $50 an hour for remote work or something? So anyways, so everybody gets all these frequent messages, but a lot of people get them on social media, but a lot of people don't have the kind of experience, or sometimes a lot of times you'll have a lapse in judgment and you'll be like, oh, I did actually order something from UPS. Maybe this is right. And then you eventually give all your information away. And so teens are especially vulnerable because they spend a lot of their time online. I can attest to that. And okay. And also, even though they might not have a lot of funds, there are a lot of different scams that can impact them a lot more psychologically and developmentally, especially things that sextortion that have happened before and that have led to intense psychological effects. And there's also a lot of security settings in social media apps, such as multi-factor authentication, which I assume everybody on the panel is extremely important, and then other settings as well. So what are the solutions currently available for protecting teens online? A lot of them are parent-oriented, parental controls, and obviously you don't want I would personally, and I feel like a lot of you guys would agree, I don't want parental controls on my Instagram. And I serve personally to police all the content that children can see and not just like help them out. And basically our idea was like, how do we have features that help teens without making them feel like uncomfortable or like feel like their privacy is being violated. So, yeah. And basically we want to be a helper and make sure like the best security practices are followed and like prevent extortion or phishing without like without policing their content, and which also like leads to trust in the product and not just like it being a hindrance. And so like we had very high goals for this project. We wanted to review the password strengths, we wanted to block like phishing links, we wanted to do like flag all these things. You can like read them. And then like especially like reviewing messages, which is I think something that that group also is talking about, where they're like, we want to make sure like people know if they're part of like a long-term scam. And we were thinking the same thing. How do we like scan these messages to like figure out and to match it up with the profile of like a certain scam? However, we realized that a lot of that was like really difficult for us to do, especially within the time frame. So especially since direct APIs aren't really available for like a lot of social media apps. And we also tried using an iOS application using like accessibility APIs, but then also it's like really, really hard to do that because understandably, Apple has like really secure systems. And we also tried a browser plugin, but this also like didn't work out great. And then the final step was we used like a test browser, which is kind of the worst option because it's local. Yeah. So basically, based on our rubric, the fresh adult account with no security settings like changed only gained like a 10 out of 100 on our like rubric for security, which is terrible. And so basically, like we wanted to basically our app helped to first see like what some red flags were, and then eventually would update security. And then the same thing, even when you put your ages younger, it would change like a few settings, but it still only didn't get that high of a score. And so future plans, obviously, I just talked about, we only implemented the security settings, and like what more could we do, obviously? There's a lot of more things we could do, especially with the goals we had in mind. So obviously you could make the implementation more robust and accommodate variations. And we could also like one of the big things is try to let it run in the background. You don't have to open it up and just go through your settings, because obviously you can do that manually. And so basically what we want to do is have this run in the background when you open your account. And we also, again, what I mentioned before, reviewing messages to flag the suspicious content. And also like, yes. And also there is something called Project Lantern, which has been announced, which is a shared initiative between a bunch of different tech companies like Google, Meta, Discord, etc. And it enables them to like share data and accounts and behaviors that can like that are red flags, or like some certain people have been flagged as exploiters of children on one platform, but then they might try to use another. And basically this allows the companies to share this information and make sure that anybody who's flagged as like a bad actor on one account, one platform, would also be banned on all of them. And then if we could access this data, this could be incredibly important, like incredibly helpful to us, because right now we've come up against a lot of roadblocks simply due to the fact that a lot of social media companies have like a lot of different protections, such as we had a demo. The issue is, which I will come to now, because Instagram, which is the thing we like first did, has like a lot of bot protections now because of stuff that has been happening. They flagged our account as a bot. So it's like not working right now. I need to go and fix that. But like, all right, thank you for listening. Thank you.
I have a question. So it was the goal, just to make sure that I understood it correctly, you wanted to come up with an app that could like basically grade whatever app that you're in, how secure it was
Yeah.
on your rubric.
Yes,
And you could use that on different accounts and kind of see how each one of them set up.
that was the idea.
So I love the idea. I really do, because what you have is you have so many different vendors out there that have so many different social media platforms that as a user, I don't know what all the settings that are in X or Meta or TikTok or whatever. So I like the idea that I could have one metric I could look at and say, okay, well, TikTok's not so great, and Instagram, I need to go change some settings. And I love that idea. I think that's fantastic. I get your challenges, but keep at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the idea too. I think what you're trying to build is a security posture for our users across their online profiles, especially the social media and the ones which is publicly facing, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably you can ping Mark Zuckerberg online. But I think it's a great idea, especially the ones which is very public, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, anything which is very public. I mean, basically anything which is under Mark's territory. I think it's a great idea if you can achieve it. I think there'll be a lot of interest in it.
No, echo everything everybody said, and understand your challenges, right? APIs aren't open. Apple have a lot of restrictions, right? But as Donald said, keep at it. Right? It's a great story. It's a great idea. So thank you.
Can you get the panelists and the kids to get a picture together?
So one thing I should. So unfortunately, I didn't get everybody's name. I only got the ones who submitted the proposals, but if the person who submitted a proposal can reply to my email with the names of all your team members, I'll have the same. So we created these certificates signed by the mayor with participation, so sorry.
That's home right here.
Okay, and just share it with your team and then share your names, and I'll have a certificate created for each one of you. And